If it's undercovered, underreported, or a waste of time, you can be sure we'll be heard. Nothing is off limits.
Welcome to Broad Street Radio.
Thank you for checking into Broad Street Radio. This is Nathan Schoener, the genius behind the show, and this is the guy I happened to put in front of the camera. What was your name again? Mitchell?
This show's getting deleted. Like, I don't even care if you record it, it's getting deleted. Worst intro ever.
Some would say best.
Who, your family members? Most of them which are under the age of 8? I don't think so.
Critics, especially the ones I pay.
You're like Amazon now?
Maybe.
This is the best intro ever. Here's $10,000. Listen, little fella, I thought what we would get into today is something super fun and super real.
Yeah.
So we haven't had one of these episodes in probably 46 shows, if I'm honest, maybe 50.
Probably.
So the United States, as of 2021, acknowledges UFOs. And
the existence of you, or
they're calling them something else.
Okay.
Even Lady Pantsuit, Hillary Clinton, they're calling them unidentified, not flying objects, but like unidentified something. But the issue be, we can no longer ignore that Congress is having hearings on things that are happening in our atmosphere. So remember all these people that said there is nothing in space, blah, blah, blah. Or maybe it's not from space. I don't know. But I listened to Marco Rubio in 2021 talking to somebody on Fox News. It was just a clip where they were talking about we've got to acknowledge what these things are. And so they're saying that the Russian and Ukraine, RIP the Queen, sweet lady.
Yep.
Ukraine and Russia are firing at things in the sky because I think it's if anything comes within 1,000 meters in the sky, fire on it. And they're saying they're shooting at these things that are appearing in the sky during the daytime. What's your feel? Are you a UFO guy? Not the band.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've not personally been abducted, if that's what you're asking.
God, I wish that would happen.
But I mean, yeah, there's bound to be stuff out there. Now, I'm wondering if a lot of the UFOs, which is unidentified flying object, not that it's an alien, is just because there is a lot of trash up there. There's a lot of trash.
There's a lot of trash here. You ever been to Kentucky?
I knew you were going there. But yes, I've been to Kentucky and agree.
Shithole. Go on.
Especially in Alabama.
Don't talk about Alabama like that.
Go Bucks. Anyway, back to the
topic at hand.
Yes, I think a lot of the UFOs potentially is some of that trash coming back into the atmosphere.
Then why does it sit still in the sky and then why does it disappear? Because it would have to land.
I'm not saying everything is like.
Are you denying the existence of foreign craft?
I can neither confirm or deny that you had sexual relations with that woman. I mean, UFO.
Most of the time, I would deny that. The only reason I asked that is that when Trump came up with, there was a big to-do when he introduced Space Force. And I remember everybody saying, what an idiot. And now you realize every nation now has their own Space Force.
Yeah.
And so when Biden got in, he like doubled the budget for Space Force, but quietly didn't mention it.
Oh, yeah.
But now people are getting promotions through Space Force. Here's part of what I think we're trying to do. I do think there's something out there. I've always thought there was something out there. But they're saying if you could get these meteors, if you can get to them, there's more diamonds on one of these meteors than there is on Earth. So there's value to that. So capitalism is going to take over. And
of course, I think that's probably the biggest thing behind Space Force and their counterparts across the country or across the world. But I mean, rather be safe than sorry. I mean, have these things in place to where like once we can legitimately get to the moon and.
Are you denying that the moon landing happened when you said that?
No. I meant
because I am. God damn it! It never happened.
Yes, it did. I mean, when we actually have like a moon base and like we have astronauts like living and working there on our way to Mars, because we've got to get to the moon. We got to get back to the moon first before we can get to Mars.
Why can't we get to the moon?
It's expensive.
Is it more expensive than we launched a rocket to collide with an asteroid? And that was like
More
$10 million just to launch that thing to blow it up.
Yeah, I would say it's probably more expensive because you got to not only get to the moon, but you have to have the infrastructure either already there or take with you to then, to put there so where you can actually survive and start building and mining and being able to create the whatever it is that they need, fuel or whatever, to then get to Mars.
Has no one seen Transformers: Dark Side of the Moon? We don't want to mine on the moon. Somebody could be living in that planet.
Well, then let's mine it to get them out. Maybe they're just
Why
stuck.
would we mine the moon? It's just a big rock, isn't it? You know what would be sad?
Could be cheese. Some
Someone
people
would
say
find
it's cheese.
oil on that thing and we would destroy the moon and it would destroy the atmosphere here. But people would say, at least we got free oil. If there was oil on the moon, the U.S. would occupy it right now. They'd build a base and occupy it.
It's probably
And
what
also
they're working
terrorize its citizens. So when you first saw the Space Force thing, did you not think like, what is going on? Did you think that he was crazy for bringing that up?
Not really. I mean, I just assumed that it was just like what we were referring to, just the capitalism aspect of being able to have force up there, to occupy.
I thought it was for airspace so that you could, because airspace ends in the atmosphere, right?
Yeah.
So if you had some huge weaponized unit and it just happened to float over top China, oh, sorry, but we're technically not in your airspace because we're outside the atmosphere. I thought it was a war-related thing.
Yeah, and it could be still.
But in 2021, when they're having hearings, and this year in 2022, they're having hearings about this, they're quite concerned because they have no idea what it is, and it's occurring more and more often. Does it worry you? Here's my concern. We can't get to the moon, as you said, or we can't do it repeatedly. And these things are showing up in our atmosphere and then hauling ass out of there, which means their technology is way better than ours.
Well, of course.
Okay. What are we going to do against them if they happen to get here and go, we're going to eradicate this? So I want to go even farther.
Nothing.
Well, what? We're going to do nothing?
There's
Well,
nothing.
not if they outlaw guns. They're trying to ban assault weapons.
Yeah, but if
I'm totally kidding.
But if what are our weapons going to do to lasers and shrink rays and
That's what I'm saying.
X-rays?
X-rays? It'll tell you if you have something in your rib cage.
Okay.
What I'm saying is this. So if they have that technology, what I'm curious about is that only 4% of human history is actually recorded. Did you know that? I'm not just making that up. That's a real thing. So in the life of the planet, we've only recorded 4% of it. And then when you look at the pyramids in Egypt have holes in the top that are perfectly in line with Orion's belt. And so the theory behind it is that these people that were probably 5'4" and 120 pounds, because people were not as big as we are today, just through pulleys and ropes and all that, built these pyramids perfectly symmetrical. And then on the inside, they have like the hieroglyphics of people with like dog ears and that kind of thing, or circular shapes that are kind of telling the story of what's happening there. And no one can decipher what that is.
You were watching episodes of Ancient Aliens last night, weren't
Do you know I've never seen that show? I've just seen the meme, and I thought I thought it was like a Judd Apatow thing, like a movie. I did not know what that was from.
That would be right up your wheelhouse. You should watch it. Because then you'd be like, oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, wait a minute.
Eating popcorn. I agree with that.
But
that happened. Yes.
How did so
And
explain?
maybe I don't know.
I'm just saying.
More picking on you.
By all means.
I don't know what.
But doesn't it make you curious? Don't you want to know more about this?
Sure.
So what I find strange about it is that people want to deny. We're supposed to be a trust the science society, and we found out you can't trust the science. Only one man is the science, and you can't trust that little prick. we have people that deny, and yet you have groups in the government since the 1940s and 50s who've been investigating this.
Project Blue Book.
Well, either it's real or it's not, right?
Well, I think that there's definitely something to, I don't know. It's, do you know about Project Blue Book and that?
Yes, but tell the listeners because most of them are listening to this on the toilet.
You're very good at explaining. Why don't you do it?
Well, it's just it's what Men in Black is based on. People that are that have observed, have taken recorded history of people that said they had encounters, but it's not something that we're supposed to know about.
Yeah,
because even during World War I and World War II, they would report these things that they saw, but no, it's all a myth. Area 51. Remember all those people who were doing the Naruto run or whatever you call it? Mm-hmm. And the cops and the FBI swarmed these people. It was just supposed to be a joke. They were going to break into Area 51, but they were going to run like this anime character. And once they got there, they realized this is not a joke. So supposedly at Area 51, there is aircraft there. And I heard a guy that used to work for the government. Again, you work for the government, I already don't trust you. But he said that they have seen this technology. They have captured some of this stuff, whether it crashed or whatever, that the technology cannot be reproduced here. And my theory is that this has happened before, and like all the stuff that's in your cell phone or in these microphones or whatever, that there is like an assembly list, like someone has figured out how to make it off of the things that have already been made. Right? That's my theory.
Could be. Never know.
Would you be excited about it? Or would you be scared about it?
It depends which kind of aliens are going to come. Are we talking First Contact from Star Trek when we get the
Clintons?
No, not the. I was going to say
I'd
Klingons.
be scared of them.
Them, yes. No, the Vulcans who, once we figure out warp drive, they come and help us along the way to create that Star Trek type.
To advance our culture.
To advance culture or warmongering, aliens or whatever, or we're going to come to like there's two different scenarios. They're either going to come and say, hey, we're in your shoes X amount millions of years ago or whatever, and here's what we've learned to how to eradicate wars and or to a certain extent. I mean, you're always going to have people jealous over this or that, so there's never going to be complete peace or whatever. But here's how to eradicate certain illnesses or hunger or whatever. Or hey, we're going to come and take your planet, and if you don't like it, you're going to be our slave or kill you.
You know what I think it is I think that these people are observing, and I think that we are their gerbils in a cage. Because Neil deGrasse Tyson gave this explanation about life and other parts of the galaxy. That if you look at, for the people not watching, I'm using my hands. So let's say we take this
and
thing.
And if you're not watching, you should go to our YouTube channel and subscribe.
Oh, that was a perfect little plug. Good job. Oh, you prick. So imagine you took two like shoe boxes and put them long ways together. That if you looked at how long it takes to travel, right, that we either have missed this time period. So in those two boxes, you're talking about, say, 300 years, right? And the time that it would take to travel across to get here, they are so much more advanced that they've moved on. There are some that might be coming to check, like what we're trying to do, explore space and go outward. They're coming back to kind of look, right? But our society hasn't learned to take care of its own people. Mm-hmm. There are people that want war constantly, and it's a war over resources. If you really looked at it, an advanced civilization wouldn't care about the resource. Like they would have figured it out to coexist.
Yeah.
There might be other planets that have existed, but they wiped themselves out because, again, it's a very selfish me kind of culture. So no matter what happens, I forget what they call it. Nietzsche is saying that when you really are a fully actualized person It's when you've accepted death, that you know your life ends, right? We don't live in a culture like that. We just think we're always going to live on forever. And then when you meet your tragic end, that's our thing as human beings. Whereas aliens, they say the farther away you are from the sun, the longer you live. So if you were, I think it's Jupiter, you would live to like 3,300 years old versus 30 years old.
It'd just be really cold.
Yeah, I mean, you'd need a sweater. But think about that. They would have more time in their life. So a trip from, millions of miles would really account for a day in their life. Mm-hmm. Whereas for us, that trip to Mars, I think there were 68 people. It was before the pandemic. They announced 68 people were going to go to Mars. Do you know how long they would be able to live on Mars? 11 days.
Yeah.
Because as you said, there's no infrastructure to send them back. Mm-mm. And people were willingly going to make that journey to go and set it up, right?
Yeah.
That's where I think there's got to be some other reason that we as the United States and other countries are putting money into this, because it can't just be the resources floating around in space. There's got to be something else out there.
Yeah.
Doesn't it excite you at all?
Yeah. But we're so far from that.
It won't happen in our lifetime.
Yeah, we're so far from that to be able to get to that Star Trek-esque type. Okay, we can survive in space. We can live in a spaceship, and we can travel long distances either quickly or sustainably get to other galaxies or whatever. Unless a civilization or people from another planet come and say, "Hey, here's how to get there. Here's how to do it."
But see, that's why I'm saying with the pyramids, I think they were trying to show us that
by building pyramids.
Yes, and they were like, if you build enough of these pyramids on top of each other. No, I think what they were trying to show, because no one knows where mathematics originated from. No one knows where the written word originated from, right? So if you think about it, we have forms of communication, because math is a form of communication, right? And so is any written language. Who originated that? If we were cavemen to begin with, right? Somebody had to hand that down. Somebody had to show how to make tools, right? That's what I believe, and I think that what's happened is that somehow got erased. Whether it's somebody looked at this and said, this is too scary to acknowledge. It's like the Loch Ness Monster. Forever they'd say, that's bullshit. And now you're finding these huge dinosaur-type fish because of the droughts. Mm-hmm. They're finding huge footprints. They're finding things that people said didn't exist. It's like how many planets were there when you went through school that were in the textbook?
How many planets?
Yeah.
I don't know, what is it, like 10?
There's nine
somewhere
in the textbooks.
Yeah.
In the last 4 years, we've discovered 38 planets. So again, what we learned is not the finished history, right? Trust the science, but nobody goes, hey, we found another one. There are 2 planets that are exactly like Earth. We just can't get to them. That's the other thing is I feel like we're going to, hey, if we can get there in 100 years, it's fine if we destroy this one. We'll just go there.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why I feel like if we work together as a globe, you could figure this out. When the space race was going on, they weren't really sharing data. But once everybody kind of got into space and then figured out they could go to the moon, then NASA started talking to these other countries to like, let's advance this together. And then capitalism gets in the middle of it where it's like, well, you guys are falling behind like Russia. We want to have a war with you, so we're not going to share our secrets.
Yeah.
We're not interested in advancing the culture anymore and advancing the species. And that's what I think eventually wipes us out. Because in 5 billion years, that's not just a made-up number, the sun will become so big, it will destroy this planet. Now, you have a long time to wait for that, but there'll be no existence of human beings in 5,000 years here. There are people working on it now that will be dead in, say, 10 to 20 years. If we never advance the species, it gets killed off. And that's what I think has happened before, is that it got killed off, whether through the Ice Age or whatever happened. That's why we don't have that 96% of human history.
Well, a lot of it, too, like I think the most famous of loss of history and technology and stuff like that is like what was that city that
Atlantis?
Not Atlantis, but the actual, like, I mean, I guess Atlantis is kind of mythic, but there's an actual city that, right. And I can't think of the name of it right now, that like actually got destroyed.
Mesopotamia?
No. It was like around the Greek or Roman area.
Oh,
You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
And it had like a huge library of scrolls and stuff that got
Right.
lost. So there's instances like that too, where because it had a lot further along.
there were thousands upon thousands of written history that got burned down
Yeah.
when Rome was attacked. And that's why I think one of the most impressive, scary and also most impressive is when the Queen passed away, when they showed where she would lay in state for the rest of. There are books down there. Like when you watch a Harry Potter movie, you're like, or a Doctor Strange, you're like, who would keep all these old books? Someone has kept those old books, but no one's allowed to read them. No one's allowed to touch them. And I understand you don't want them to fall apart, but there are. I think when you're watching movies or you're watching television shows and they're based on certain things, I think there's a lot of these stories like Loch Ness, which becomes like. I don't believe that there's one Loch Ness, but you also don't know how far the ocean really goes down because we can't get that far because of the pressure. But where does a whale go? Or you know what I mean? Like a whale has to rest at some point, but that is a huge animal, but we've come to accept it because we see it and we know pretty much where they are. Have you ever seen one in person?
No.
It's the most massive thing. Like I was in Seattle going to, I think it was British Columbia. Or Vancouver, and I was on one of those boats, and they're like, if you look off to the left, you might see one. I mean, this thing looks like an entire planet coming out of the water, and it's not there to bother you or any of that kind of stuff. But if that exists, how can we say that nothing exists deeper down in the ocean?
Oh yeah, I mean they've said before, like they're because of how far we can actually go and research. Like there's so much more and like some of the larger depths that we can't even get to, so we don't really know what's
Are you okay? Because you're on your phone while we're doing this show.
Well,
And normally I would yell at somebody, but I'm just going to let it go. It's just you're going on a little bit longer with the phone.
well I was trying to find the name of that city because it's bugging me now.
Do me a favor on that. Look up what is NASA's annual budget. That's what I'm curious about. Because Space Force has its own money that's not just NASA. That's its own thing, like its own military branch. But
So for 2020, 22.6 billion
for NASA,
for NASA.
what is Space Force? That's got to be like $6 billion, wouldn't
I don't know. Let's find out.
it? This is the on hold music while you're futzing around.
Space Force.
It's got to be in the billions. Come on, Thummy. What are we doing?
Hey, you know what? I can only go as 3.6. Our breakdown of Space Force 24.5 billion budget.
$24 billion on Space Force. Actually, did you know that you can apply for that? Kind of like if you want to get in the Navy or the Air Force,
Yeah,
you can say you want to go into that.
You can apply into it, yeah.
How do you flunk out? Do you know what I mean? Like, well, you can't handle zero gravity, so you're out. Like,
Well, I'm sure just like the Marines or the Army or Navy or whatever, you can, if you don't meet expectations.
yeah, but even in that, you're still a grunt, so you won't be an officer, but you're going to sweep the deck for your 4 years that you're committed or whatever.
Well, same thing probably for Space Force.
So have you seen these things? Like, again, they keep showing this footage, and it used to get taken down. Like they'd say, CNN would take it down and say that's fake news and all that. The news outlets are actually reporting it now, and they're showing these things. I'm excited about it because I don't think it's a negative, but I do think it's the librarian checking on us to see if we're screwing around in class type thing. You know what I mean? Are you guys doing your homework? What I think is they're probably so disappointed in what they see.
Yeah. That's probably like, oh, you haven't figured out warp drive yet. We'll come back.
It's
and
not
check
even
again.
that. I think about where they're seeing them. Like they used to see them over like state parks and all that. Now they're seeing them over battlefields. Whether it's in Russia or whether it's in Iran or whatever. And I mean, soldiers have come back and said, "Hey, we saw this in the desert, just lights where there are no lights." Right? It just makes me wonder, like, at what point do we actually have some kind of proof, like that somebody actually sees or it lands somewhere? So far, they haven't appeared to land it anywhere. But at
Yeah.
some point, they're going to. Because it used to be I just saw one thing in the sky. There's one in Phoenix. If you Google this, you can get it on YouTube. There are like 11, and they're like in a V shape. So there's one in the middle, and it kind of goes out this way. And then they just take off and disappear. But they're up there for like, I think it's from 2008 or 2010. And they just stayed there. And then when they were done, they were gone like that. And it was reported on the news. And then they said, those were from a brush fire. There was no fire that night.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things like, we don't know what it is. So we're not going to say it's aliens. And I believe that the government, again, what is it? Project Blue?
Blue Book.
Right? Yeah, Blue Book. I think you better get that off the news right now. And now they're just openly saying, yeah. I don't think that that's an occupying force from China or Ukraine or anything. I think that is literally why Space Force exists. And my worry is we're going to try to blow that thing up, whatever it is, because that's just who we are. We have to destroy things. We don't make things.
Yeah.
As a species.
I guess it just depends on if it shows itself as a threat versus, hey, we're here to help.
What is my question would be, what is the threat? I think the threat is the same way we react to people coming over the border and everything else. It's something I'm not familiar with, so I got to shoot it.
Yeah, I guess so.
Why would that be the answer to some? If you came to my house and I don't know you, you knock on the door, and I come out and beat you to death with a ball bat, I didn't even give you an opportunity to see if you're friendly or not, right? That's what we're doing, shooting at these craft in the air. We're assuming they have bad intentions.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, until we get to a point in society where we're not needing to fight over resources, you're going to have your Putins and your whoever's in charge of South Korea. I forget his
Whoever's
name.
in charge of this country.
That's true.
We don't know who that is, but a guy shows up on TV once every 4 months.
Yeah.
Could you imagine? He's probably shitting himself, mainly because he shits himself in public. But if he read those documents,
You know about that though.
yeah, I know about being in
Personally.
charge.
I was going to say about
No,
going to the bathroom in your pants.
you know, Obama was on Jay Leno. I want to say 2007, 2008, and he acknowledged UFOs. He didn't go deep into it, but for some reason, now, just so you know, Jay Leno never asked a question that wasn't on the card.
Yeah.
And it was always asked in the pre-interview. So that wasn't just hey, I got a random thought, because Jay Leno's never had a random thought. Somebody must have walked him into that question, and he answered, and he didn't go into specifics, but he did acknowledge that. And you can say there's a UFO today. Nobody cares. If you say eggs have gone up 12 cents, there's going to be a riot today.
True.
Do you think that we are too small-minded to kind of wrap our thoughts around what that could be or what that could do?
I think yes and no. I think I think it just depends on how long it takes us to get, like if they slowly are leaking, like, okay, yes, there's something out there. Yes, there's something out there. Yes, we know. Yes, we've been in contact. Yes, like they're here to help or whatever. If it's like all at once, I don't know. I think it depends on how it's presented, because I heard a statement, and I find it true. I don't remember exactly. It's a person can be smart or can be thoughtful. A group of people are chaotic. Something to that effect. I don't remember exactly how it was said, but I think that's the case here. Like if you have a worldwide population of people that find out like, hey, this is real, or they're here, or they're coming, or whatever. You're going to have your mass hysterias. You'll have pockets of people that have, just like an Independence Day with signs like "Take me" or whatever. Hopefully they don't blow up the building like they did in Independence Day.
They blew up the White House. Not a bad idea.
Yeah. Well,
Start there.
At least a model of it, just like they did in Independence Day.
Well, there also is a model of the White House on the White House lawn. So do either one.
Okay. Well, On that note, why don't you in the comments let us know, do you believe in aliens? Have they already arrived? Is he an alien? Because I have no idea.
And do you like it when you're doing a show with your friend and he's on his goddamn phone? Leave that in the comments as well.
Let it go, my friend. Let it go. We'll talk to you next week.